Hello, my name is Yutaka Watanabe, tax accountant. Welcome to the channel. Tax Accountant Nabe solves your money problems. Today, I'd like to talk about the secret manual for tax audits. To all business owners and accounting staff busy with daily operations. Let me ask you something suddenly. There is probably almost no one who hears the words tax audits and feels absolutely nothing when you imagine a sudden phone call from the tax office. Many of you probably feel your stomach tighten. Preparing a huge volume of documents dealing with tax auditors in these exchanges and wanting to avoid the whole thing for the result of your life. Do you think of tax audits as events where you have no choice but to passively endure them? But please wait a moment. What if there were an incredible guidebook that could turn that anxiety into absolute confidence and completely reverse the power balance with the auditor? In today's explanation, we will unpack the ultimate approach for completely shifting from the side that merely endures passively to the side that acts strategically and shrewdly. So, let's start changing our perspective together today. Now, let's jump straight into the main topic. Please imagine this for a moment. What if the tax office itself, the very organization that comes to strictly examine your company, openly published to the public its own playbook showing its strategy, such as this year we will focus on these points, or we are targeting this industry? You may think such a thing cannot possibly exist, but if it did exist, you would desperately want it, wouldn't you? After all, you would have the other side's rulebook in your hands from the very beginning. There is no weapon more powerful than that. With this alone, there would be no need to tremble in fear of the unknown. Actually, just between us, in the world of tax audits, there is a kind of secret manual used quietly by only some specialists. The phrase secret manual refers to something like a confidential book of hidden techniques or the ultimate textbook that summarizes the most important points. A tax audit is truly like a complicated maze, but only those who obtain this secret manual and understand its essence can survive without getting lost and without being harmed. So, where do you think this secret manual is? It is something that can only be obtained through some suspicious back channel. Actually, here lies a surprising fact. The secret manual that we are desperately searching for is, unbelievably, something that the National Tax Agency itself publishes every year, very openly as press release material. Its name is the Overviews of Corporate Tax Audit Results. At first glance, it may look like nothing more than a stiff official announcement quietly placed on a government agency website. But in reality, this is the living secret manual packed with the tax office behavioral patterns and way of thinking. Moreover, every year, it is carefully updated to the latest version and presented right in front of us. What I especially want you to pay attention to are the three clear indicators published by the National Tax Agency in this material. The first is the number of tax audits. The second is unreported income. The third is additional tax assessed. You may wonder why the National Tax Agency goes out of its way to publish these numbers. In short, it is almost as if they are openly revealing their own result and proprieties, where they allocate personnel, what kind of errors they uncover, and how much tax they correct as a result. This is not just past date. It is an extremely realistic report card of the tax office showing how often they come, what kind of irregularities they find, and how much they correct. For example, if the data shows that the number of audits in a certain industry is low, but the amount of additional tax assessed is extremely high, that means the tax office has found a profitable target where it can correct efficiently in one shot. By combining these three indicators, you can clearly see where they may target next. That is exactly why the most important point is to read and understand the contents of the materials correctly. Simply looking vaguely at the published data and thinking, "Oh, I see," has no meaning at all. The moment you take an offensive approach and try to correctly interpret the background behind why the National Tax Agency released this data, an ordinary document turns into a strongest shield for protecting your company. Let me give you a concrete example. For instance, if the National Tax Agency announced this year we strengthened our focus on investigations of overseas transactions, you absolutely must not dismiss that as someone else's problem. It is like a powerful declaration of war from the National Tax Agency saying it will continue to thoroughly monitor overseas transactions next year as well. If your company has overseas transactions, you should immediately recheck whether your transfer pricing documentation is complete and whether there are any omissions in withholding tax. If errors in consumption tax are pointed out in a specific IT industry, you should review your own process and ask, is our processing flow really okay? Reading the message behind the numbers, applying it to your own operations, and eliminating weakness in advance. This is the true meaning of understanding the material in a practical way. A tax audit is not an unavoidable natural disaster that strikes when you are unlucky. If you understand the other side's strategy in advance and prepare properly, it is one business process that can be fully controlled. Before auditors come to examine your books from top to bottom, are you ready to read the playbook they themselves have published and prepare your first move? The next data release is no longer just news. It is the strongest weapon protecting your company. Starting today, please make full use of this weapon from a new perspective. Today, I spoke about the topic, the secret manual for tax audit. For more information about tax audits, please also visit the website of Yutaka Watanabe Tax Audit, Tax Accountant Office. I will continue sharing content related to money and finance. Please subscribe to the channel. Tax Accountant Nabe solves your money problems.